Welcome to Bed Crime Stories Podcast. I'm your host, T, and if true crime is your jam and like me, you enjoy delving into unsolved cases, trying to figure out who done it, please consider subscribing. Also, if you enjoy my videos, please hit that like button. Dave Rader, Operations Director of EquuSearch Midwest, and Twila Sisco, their search coordinator, showed up on Duty Ron's YouTube channel a few days ago to talk about EquuSearch's 3 visits to Beech Creek to search for summer wells. Rader and Sisco clarified some of the confusion, I've had at least, over where exactly the various groups searched in the days right after little Summer was reported missing, and if and when cadaver and tracking dogs came into the picture. Here's what Rader and Sisco had to say. The first search that EquuSearch volunteers participated in for summer wells took place just 4 days after the then 5-year-old went missing. Rader characterized EquuSearch as playing a support role in the search. According to Rader, Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and their search and rescue squad were in charge of the overall search, but members of the TBI and FBI also assisted. So those entities were the ones who searched the Wells home and their 11-acre property. And per Rader, they searched those multiple times and looked inside all barrels, vehicles, etc. EquuSearch, however, has yet to search Don Wells and Candace Bly's home and their expansive property. Rader described the searches planned by Hawkins County law enforcement as well organized and said they weren't letting anyone on or off Ben Hill Road in those early days, and at some point they were also searching any cars that showed up. Note that Rader also stated that both cadaver and tracking dogs were brought in to search at various points after Summer disappeared, and he confirmed that a live track dog tracked Summer's scent to the end of the driveway, which he said usually indicates that a person got into a car. But Rader also stated that the odds that a stranger abducted Summer there are slim to none. Both he and Twila Sisco mentioned how steep the Wells property is, how the dogs would have barked, how the people at home there that day would have heard someone climbing up the hill, seen a car, or heard a car. Rader also said that he personally doesn't think Candace Bly's story about what happened that afternoon is plausible. In his opinion, Summer did not wander off or get abducted. When asked if he was told anything about Summer being a special needs child or a nonverbal child, Rader said that no one said anything about that to him. Normally, authorities would mention that, and they would have also put that in the Amber Alert. Just a side note, Rader mentioned that autistic children tend to gravitate toward water. That's not a reference to Summer, however. Nobody said she was autistic. I just thought it was something interesting that Dave Rader said. Hawkins County law enforcement assigned Rader and his team of EquuSearch volunteers, including Twila, to a 2-mile radius beyond the Wells property. As to when Dave Rader turned up for the search, Summer was reported missing on the evening of Tuesday, June 15, 2021. Dave Rader arrived 4 days later on Saturday, June 19th, and he remained in Beech Creek searching for 4 days up until Wednesday, June 21st. Rader described this initial search as a rescue mission and said there was a sense of urgency because they were focused on finding a live girl at this point. He explained that if Summer had indeed wandered off the property, by that Saturday she would have been in dire straits. No food, no water, no shoes, out in the elements for that amount of time. She would have needed to be found ASAP. Twila was also there, and she participated in the searches as well. Listen to her description of what she and other EquuSearch volunteers stumbled upon as they traversed the rough landscape and checked out abandoned buildings.
I want to just go over to Twila quickly, because Twila, I know in your initial searching, you guys came across some odd things. You came across pieces of evidence that, you spoke to the Hawkins County Sheriff. This is not anything that's a secret or anything like that. But, there were some oddities that you guys came across and things like that. You want to just talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you guys ran across? And I know you were chased by a bear the second time around, or you saw one, and it was pretty scary. I just want the folks to know, what you guys came up against.
I can assure anybody that any part of anywhere that EquuSearch had been out there, she's not there. And we had came across needles and just in open fields, needles and syringes. Me and another teammate was out reconning, and there was definitely a bear. That bear came across that field and ran directly in front of us and went up this big old hill like it was flat land. And then I've heard a lot of talk about a horse that was in the area. I can assure you that EquuSearch was there in the beginning days of that horse, because we most definitely smelled it. But there was a lot of different things out there. I'll tell you my opinion. When I first rolled up into that area, I was thinking, oh my heavens, you cannot make me believe that there is a child out here, because there was so much stuff. I mean, we were searching in any kind of empty buildings that had so much junk in it, and we even searched in a vacant mobile home that was infested with bed bugs and you name it. I think we ran across it down in that area. It was not for the good. And then when I took another team out there, or I took our team with another group, when we conducted another search, the area that we was put in there, let me tell you something. At the end of the day, there was several of our searches that was very sick, very, very sick from the garbage that we had to. It was just awful.
From Twila's description, it's pretty clear that the landscape near the Wells property is definitely not for the faint of heart. The threat of bears is real. Apparently, some of those searchers even fell sick after being inside those garbage-strewn structures. Dave Rader also had something interesting to say about where he and his team were directed to search. He said that he felt frustrated after several days because local law enforcement kept having him and his volunteers search the same areas over and over and over. Normally, EquuSearch does one solid pass or grid search on one area, and then they expand the search outward from there. Rader said he finally vented his frustration on Tuesday, June 20th, and law enforcement then agreed to let EquuSearch move beyond that first 2-mile radius. You'd think the local law enforcement would have had Rader and his people search as many areas as they could during their time in Beech Creek, rather than have them go over the same area multiple times. Rader also mentioned in a previous interview with Duty Ron that the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and TBI did not share any information with him about places that they felt he should concentrate on. It makes me wonder why Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and their search team kept EquuSearch from covering as much territory as they could during this critical early search time when they were still looking for a live child. I can understand them not wanting anyone but the TBI and local law enforcement inside the Wells house and on their property, but you'd think that beyond that, they'd let Rader use his judgment to extend the search area. I mean, EquuSearch specializes in this type of thing. Why was the local law enforcement not making full use of EquuSearch? And why were they limiting them to that 2-mile radius? EquuSearch searchers are volunteers. and EquuSearch doesn't charge for their services, so Hawkins County would not have been afraid of a large bill. After this search, Rader and Sisco agreed that there's little chance that Summer disappeared because of wandering off the property. They said that if she had, one of the Wells dogs would likely have followed her, and Rader, Twila, and the other searchers would have found her during those initial days of searching. This makes me question why Hawkins County Detective Dave Pruitt said not too long ago that the scenario of Summer wandering off the property is still on the table. If Dave Rader is saying that that is very unlikely, why does Pruitt still think it's a possibility? Both Twila and Dave also said that Summer 100% was not on the land they searched when they were there. If she had been there, they would have found her. Of note, Rader said that it's always possible that after a search, a perpetrator will move a body back to an already searched area. Rader said that this has definitely been known to happen, and that's why EquuSearch never posts photos showing recognizable search areas. They keep those areas under tight wraps. When someone from the chat asked Dave Rader if it was true that the tracking dogs stopped at JSB's feet, Duty Ron jumped in right away to say that they don't do drama on his channel and that he doesn't even know who JSB is. Now, anyone following this case for any length of time knows that JSB is the Wells' former neighbor, Jody Sue Brown. What's weird about Duty Ron's response to that question is that on another live he did 3 months ago, when he was asked about Jody Sue Brown, Duty Ron knew who she was, and he said the same thing about drama, and he shut down any talk of her and the search dogs. Now, maybe Duty Ron legitimately didn't recognize Jody Sue's initials, because that's how the person in the chat wrote her name when asking the question. But I do find it odd that he couldn't put 2 and 2 together to know that JSB refers to none other than Jody Sue Brown. Also, Rader and Sisco must certainly know who Jody Sue Brown is. In my opinion, Duty Ron deliberately shut down any talk of Jody Sue Brown and any questions about those tracking dogs possibly stopping at her feet on June 15th. I don't understand why asking about Jody Sue Brown should automatically spell drama to Duty Ron. The person was asking about the tracking dogs. Did Duty Ron shut down that question because that information is in some way related to the investigation? It definitely makes me wonder. Note that I did try to get Dave Rader to come onto my little humble channel, and I was told very quickly that he only talks to Duty Ron. Duty Ron pretty much has a monopoly when it comes to Dave Rader and EquuSearch. I think that maybe because Duty Ron is an ex-police officer and they know that he won't ask a question that could possibly harm the case, and also because Duty Ron does manage to raise a lot of donations for EquuSearch, which I totally support and I think is great. And I too would donate those funds if Dave Rader would come on my channel. But of course he won't. So anyway, the second search effort by EquuSearch for Summer Wells took place after Duty Ron proactively called the Hawkins County law enforcement to see if they wanted EquuSearch to come back. Their reply, per Duty Ron, was, "We won't stop you if you want to come back." According to Rader, his team found a lot of places during their second search that hadn't yet been covered by the local law enforcement. And I'm wondering, why is that? It makes it sound like local law enforcement isn't being as assiduous as they could be in their searches, or it could also be because they're stymied due to their budgetary restrictions. The third search was when Dave Rader and Twila Sisco came to Rogersville to do a high-tech drone search with Hawkins County Detective Dave Pruitt. EquuSearch flew in a man named Gene from Texas who has a high-tech drone, a drone that can tell if a piece of ground has been disturbed. Rader said that they had trouble, though, because of the thick kudzu vine that grows a foot a day. Apparently, this stuff is so thick that it's almost impossible to cut through it. It was during this third search that Dave and Twila met Candace Bly and Don Wells, from what I understand. Rader said that he and Don had a man-to-man discussion because Don Wells had been bashing Dave Rader. Don did what he always does when he insults people who are trying to help him find his child. He apologized to Dave Rader, but Dave said it felt like lip service. Twila actually had dinner with Candace and Don and sat in a small booth with them along with another lady that she didn't identify. Twila said that Don and Candace gave her and EquuSearch full permission to search their property. Interesting, because EquuSearch never did that. Twila had nothing negative to say about the Wells, but it sounds like it's her job to be the liaison between the searchers and the missing person's loved ones. So it's not her responsibility to grill the family for answers or to try to push them one way or another. I'm not sure if this happened during the third search or not, but Twila mentioned that one of the dog teams from Tennessee that was looking for Summer, well, Twila said that dog team is excellent in her opinion. Twila said that if Summer had been there, that dog team would have found her. When asked if he thought Summer would ever be found, Dave Rader said he thinks she will be found most likely only if someone talks. Rader also continues to question whether Summer even made it home on that June day. He seems to believe that she never made it back to 110 Ben Hill Road that day after the trip to the medical center, the fishing hole, the grocery store, and wherever else they went. Rader also talked about there being 3 people who were Summer's guardians that day, and I believe he's referring to Candace, Don, and Grandis. Rader said that they were in charge of her, and for that reason, he believes they know what happened to her. And I have to say that I agree. Duty Ron minced no words either when talking about Summer's parents. He said Candace's story stinks to high heaven and described the Wells home as a house of horrors. He also referred to the basement as the dungeon and said that local law enforcement locked down the Wells home early on because they saw things that didn't look right. I believe that if Duty Ron and his other retired police buddies and Dave Rader see through the Wells, the TBI must be seeing that same stuff. Let's hope they're busy building their case and doing all they can to find out what really happened to Summer. That's all for now. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now please hit that like button, and if you want to support the channel, please leave a donation.